All right. And we are live. Welcome to another freshly squeezed episode of PKs on Air, Monday, 4 p.m. at least in Germany and in Switzerland as well. That's important. Yeah, welcome back. We're happy that you are all kind of either on your way dialing in or already with us. As always, a very exciting episode. Luckily for you guys, I'm not alone. I think that's also important. Otherwise, you would have to listen to me for like another hour. I don't think that's a very good idea. So, kind of as almost per usual, I would say, we have our lovely Dominique with us again. Dominique, how are you?
Hello. Yeah, good to be here again. I'm in the 12th week now, I guess, or 11th. I'm not sure anymore.
11th. I think we're on 11th. Yeah, I
Lost
kind of
track
lost
on
track
that.
as well. Fair enough.
Yeah, but all good. Yeah, thanks. How are you today?
I'm good. I mean, weather is nice and sunny, at least like close to where I live in Hanover. So yeah, all good. How did you spend your weekend? Another cycling trip or?
No, quite boring, I would say, because the weather was pretty bad in Berlin during the
All
weekend.
right,
So
fair
I
enough.
tried a lot of stupid Netflix series and TV shows. So nothing special this weekend.
Lazy weekend and now back in the office. I can see.
Yes.
Very good. There's another one, not another one, but another person, dialed in today, which I'm very excited about. And I can see that he is actually also back in his office. Raphael Bienz, welcome to the show.
Hello, good day.
Yeah, how are you doing, Raphael? How's life treating you?
Well, despite the fact that it's still Monday, it's quite okay.
It's quite okay.
Extremely
Fair
busy,
enough.
to some extent, moving times and business-wise, but also everything that happens around us. And as you notice, currently I'm back here in the office, and it's exciting to see how things start to pick up. And let's see where that brings us.
Yeah, absolutely. We're gonna talk about that in a second. Give us a quick intro. So who's Raphael? What are you doing? Yeah, let's just give us a quick rundown on who is joining us today.
Well, as you said, my name is Raphael. I'm working at BlueGlass here in Zurich, Switzerland. We're a digital marketing agency. I'm with BlueGlass now for a bit over 8 years, I guess. Started with a colleague, and as of today, we're a good team of 40 working on SEO content. This is where we have the DNA of our agency, where we come from. Added strategic consulting, the concepts for online presences, including some web design and extending into development. And obviously there's campaigns in SEA, paid social, and programmatic advertising. That's what we cover out of the heart of Zurich.
Nice. Yeah, that's one of my favorite cities in the world, actually. But I guess you hear that a lot. You're pretty central, right? If I recall correctly.
Yeah, it's really downtown. Actually, it's in a fun and livid area of Zurich. So
Yeah.
if you get bored at work, you just watch out the window and you see something happening at any given time.
Got it. That works. Yeah, I mean, you kind of teased the which is great. You kind of teased the topic already a bit. So I think we said, well, it would be cool to just have another perspective, or even kind of the same but another opinion, from an agency background on all things, starting out with, how did the entire COVID crisis somewhat impact you guys? What have you been doing? What have been your key learnings also, as an agency, but also probably from like an HR perspective, what are the things that worked well? What are the things that didn't work so well? Dominique and I kind of in the past touched on a couple of topics as well, but I think this is going to be like an interesting chat if it's just not only coming from one perspective, but also from like another also geographic region, if that makes any sense. So I think this is going to be good, and we're going to be discussing a bit around I think the home office situation and discussion that kind of came out of COVID in general. I think you have a strong take on that one as well. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to our chat actually on that one. It's gonna be good. Before we get into it, a couple of quick housekeeping notes as always. So feel free, when you're watching from Facebook or Instagram, which usually doesn't work well, but sometimes we kind of put in like snippets, bits and pieces. But yeah, Twitter should work, YouTube should work. So if you have any questions, comments that you either want us to cover or have them directly for Raphael, just feel free to put them into the respective chats or comments. We try to monitor. Otherwise, of course, also afterwards, we're all like available for any questions or opinions, takes that you guys might have. I think that's important. And then second thing, if you are now maybe not watching it live, which is a shame, but if you now if you're done and you're watching it on YouTube afterwards, we'd be very, very grateful to have you as a subscriber. That needs to be said. I think we're still struggling. But all things have to start out eventually. So I would say we're getting there. We're getting there, right? Dominique, did I miss anything, or we good with the?
I think that's basically it. Yeah, please leave us your questions. Also, yeah, everywhere on all the mentioned channels. But I think that's basically it for now.
Sounds good. Then let's get going. So, I mean, Raphael, for us, I think it kind of all started out, and I think it was pretty much with slight differences all over Europe, right? It kind of all started out in March, and like things kind of got crazy from various angles. How, like, if we look back and you guys look back, how did it work out for you guys? And maybe also as a bit of a background, have you been dealing with flexible working times, home office, those types of things before? So was it kind of a huge surprise, or was it like, well, we were kind of used to it? How did it work for BlueGlass when things kind of got crazy?
Yeah, I mean, if we start looking back to the beginning, I'd say, first of all, I have to admit that it hit me kind of like a surprise. I was not really prepared that things would go this way, this quickly. And I felt it came so quickly. I mean, we started in you heard the news, you read about it, you have a certain degree of awareness, but you don't realize that this could become real, and that it really could hit home to some extent. And then it started in northern Italy. You saw the news, the imagery, and it was kind of unavoidable. But then looking back, I think it just went really, really quickly and spread out into Switzerland, and then obviously France, Germany, those pretty close to the beginning in Switzerland as well. So to some extent, I feel like besides Italy, we were a bit ahead of the main curve, or front runners in this whole thing. So I think that added up to, wow, this feeling of, is this real? And it was overwhelming. I don't know how you felt about it in the very beginning.
Yeah, I mean, I would say kind of the same in that regard. Like we had a last week's chat. We had our own Julia on the stream, and she was showing a bit of like data from the kind of the paid search accounts, and that was literally how it felt for us as well. I mean, as you said, like you saw the news and like especially in from coming over from China, and then you saw it like in Italy, and we kind of got, like, for us it came then very, very quick, because we have like a lot of like international accounts, and some we were also serving in Italy, obviously. So I almost said like it was an early warning system, but like they pulled out an advertisement relatively quickly. So we were like, oh, this might be getting real. But before that, I would agree. Like you were like, okay, this is like so far away, literally speaking, that might not even be impacting us at all. So I think, it was kind of the same.
Yeah, and then I think, I mean, the question quickly was, what's the right thing to do, not just from a business perspective. I think the first item on the list was always our main priority was everybody staying healthy and not doing any mistakes. But in the early phase, I think you have so many different opinions out there, experts and people call themselves experts, and you could find articles that say, well, it goes away within days or weeks, or it's nothing than a flu, or it's going to be the worst thing that ever had happened to us, So I think it was hard to judge, but one thing that was good for us that early on we decided, there's the opinion in the media, but in the end, there's authorities and official experts, and you just follow their advice, and you don't question too much the reasoning behind that. And then you have a safe guideline, which quickly led to the fact that we made it optional to do home office, especially for people who come to city using public transport. And then a bit later on, I think we never had the obligation or a way to say, well, it's forbidden to come to the office, because that was not what was recommended by the authorities. But they say wherever possible, make home office. So we not only offered this option, we encouraged our team, and especially we highly recommended it for everyone who had to use public transport. So I guess that basically shut the office down from one day to another, then obviously without us forbidding to come to the office. There was no need for, I think, putting an emphasis that everybody has to find a solution for himself, because I'm not able to, or I don't feel that we should, as an employer, dictate too much of what people do in a situation like this. We can give, we can accept what the guidelines and the procedures given by the authorities are, and we have to make sure that these are in place. We can serve some informational service towards our team, but I mean, that's also personal questions that people should be able to take on their own too.
Yeah, and also probably personal preferences in that regard, right? So how do they really feel it's that severe or no? I mean, as you said, you can provide the guidance, and then you have to accept that some people are probably more also more affected, right, due to personal situation and whatnot. So I see what you mean. But was it so how did you guys do before? Was BlueGlass always offering remote work options, work from home options? Was it easy for you guys? Because I know also from some of the other companies that I've kind of had exchanges with that, they were like, well, we even we don't not everyone even has had a laptop before that. So I can really imagine that that's kind of a struggle then.
Yeah, luckily on that end, we just moved on over the last 12 months or so, transforming desktop stations to more laptop-based hardware system. And I think also we were lucky because since ever we use G Suite as a basis here, so it's kind of a cloud native company, and that obviously helped on the technical side. On the other hand, there's the more cultural aspects and how we might have treated remote work before this crisis. And I think one of the things that stands out for the company or the culture that we have is that we have a lot of small discussions, small reviews of thoughts, and in between teams, you got to avoid any kind of silo thinking and so on. And I think that it's really vivid and chatty sometimes if you walk through our office, but especially before. Also something that was a lot noticed by clients, that there's a lot of energy and communication and back and forth, and not everybody's fully in his tunnel. That has some positive, that has some negative, obviously, in terms of focus. But given this fact, we always have the option to take a day or two home office if you need it for whatever reason. But the principle was more we work from the office to keep this culture, to nourish this culture as good as possible.
And that makes total sense. I think we can relate on that a lot. I think that was one of the points that Dominique made a lot in the past as well, especially with how parts of her teams work, right, Dominique?
Yeah, definitely. I needed to smile a bit when Raphael, you mentioned that's technically not that change, let's say, sending all the people and employees to home office, but the point of cultural changes is massive for us as well. I think we had discussed on that internally during the last weeks very extensively, because we, especially in content marketing as well, or especially there, We have a lot of exchanges with each other. We have a lot of meetings, like creative meetings, brainstormings, and everything around that. I mean, in general at PKs, we have a lot of meetings at all, but also like things we have for after work beers, let's say, or company lunch. That's more important that I would say I would have recognized before. I mean, it was clear from the very beginning that culture, or a special culture in a company, is super important. But this is what we recognized a lot during the last weeks. Not only for content marketing, I think that's for every company and for all the teams and departments. But this is more the major change here, I would say. Yeah.
But also, I guess the other point that that needs to be made is the fact that you know, I mean, as pleasant as remote work might be, I think what's really hard, and I'm not sure, Raphael, what your kind of profile or also take on this is in general. But like, so what we see at PKs obviously is, I mean, we have a broad variety of like skill sets, literally kind of the same as you guys do, but also seniority wise, right? So we have like people that kind of just start out in the job, or that have like a year or two experience, and then of course we have our seniors and team leads and whatnot. But what we really struggle with, and I think this is especially problematic for the like, I wouldn't say younger in the sense of younger, but like people that are not as long in the job. So I'm curious how you guys did that. Like, we feel that this education issue arises because that can only be done through remote so much, right? So what's your take? How you guys dealing with that? Is that something familiar, or you're like, maybe PKs is just not clever enough in doing that?
Yeah, I think, and we, at least in one good example, we had an absolute cold start into exactly this. I mean, we have a colleague who used to work in Portugal for Google, and he started at BlueGlass mid-March. So it was
great,
the very first week of this strong lockdown, and he had his first day at work. So we weren't prepared for the major situation. And then how do you deal with that? And I think I have to make a big compliment to my colleague Anis, who just stayed open-minded, who accepted the challenge. So you got to imagine, he had one of the last flights out of Portugal to come to Zurich, and just getting used to that. But also his team, his colleagues in the team, his team lead, they all, I feel, looking back, they did a great job of making this integration as smooth as possible. With well, you have the options of video conferences and so on, but I mean, we were not prepared for that, and we just tried to do our best, and that was kind of an emergency situation, and we just had to repeat that later on. So on beginning of May, we had another colleague who started as a team manager. Was supposed to start as a team manager. She lived in Hamburg before and wanted to move to Zurich, but she couldn't enter Switzerland anymore. So then you have to start as a new team manager, and you cannot see and
your
get
team.
to know your
team
face. I think that just really adds complexity. And in the end, how you have to deal it is like, you have to start with the more operational stuff and onboarding on the actual work site, and culture kind of had to wait to some extent, because you're not able to reproduce 100% of the company and team culture within this time. So I think everybody has to accept, well, this is a bit more kind of sterile, clean environment, but there's going to be a point in time where this changed, and I hope that quickly changed over the last about 2 weeks since we fully back in the office.
Right.
I think
Dominique, you had kind of the same situation in your team, right? I mean, there's the one, like, obviously there's a colleague starting, but also, I mean, maybe you want to just drop off like this other merging teams kind of a situation, because I think that ties in quite nicely as well. Yeah.
Definitely, yeah, that's what I just wanted to mention. Yeah, we had like one new colleague starting at the middle of April, and which was, I think, the first time for us for having like a remote onboarding. So we had some internal talks about that and discussions. Okay, how should we do that? And we just sent over. So we prepared something like very quick tutorials, like how to use Zoom, how to log in there, and how to use Office 360 and everything around that, so that she's at least able to log in a Zoom call and open her emails, and just for the basics. And then yeah, we were thinking about how to show her not only how we work, but also how we are. So giving her a bit of insights about our culture. So what we have done is like having or securing like daily check-ins or daily mini stand-ups with her, so that there's one person. So we have like something like a mentoring program, that she has one mentor, and the person having like daily check-ins, daily small updates, just to get or make sure that she's on track, and she has always a platform to ask questions. I think that's the most important thing over there, because I think it's too late when you just wait for questions and wait until people say hello, I'm completely lost, please help me. So giving people like a daily platform on that, and of course introducing teams, having like weekly updates, but also something like coffee talks. We never had that before remote. So like checking in at I don't know, 1 p.m. for just drinking a coffee together. I mean, that's time consuming as well, especially for me. That's a pretty new experience to meet people just for having a remote coffee and to ask what's going on. But it's super helpful. And yeah, on the other hand, we had like the team restructuring, let's say restructuring. So we merged our content marketing and SEO teams at the beginning of April. So we planned that for weeks and had like a very proper plan for how to do the team building, because the teams were like mixed up a bit. So we have like interdisciplinary teams, like for content marketing managers and SEO managers. And yeah, we had like beautiful thoughts on that before. How to do
that. I can agree. The theory was amazing. Just the execution kind of suffered a bit. That's
went different.
Slightly. Yeah, but it's interesting that we kind of see the same things then, right? I mean, so Raphael, besides that, obviously, I think culture being somewhat, as you said, has to wait, which I think, especially as agencies, we all have like the same struggle there. I think culture is a huge part of who we are, how we operate, also what we do, and potentially how kind of like, what's even like rooted into the core values, really. So what other challenges have you guys come across, next to just, I mean, obviously remote onboarding, I understand is not as simple, agreed, but any other things that stood out where you said, oh, well, that we did expect or we didn't expect at all?
Well, I think the other end kind of is client projects, campaigns, and I mean, there was to some extent, and well, so some earthquake in the beginning. Some of the campaigns were immediately stopped, paused, suspended, reduced. Some others were just came out of nowhere and had to start as quick as possible. So I think that from any given perspective, everybody had to be on its toe, and we had to be very agile and quick in many ways. And to us, I think when I looked out into social media, there was lots of communications about like, yeah, we're all working now in home office, but that was quite repetitive quite quickly, and everybody just like, wow, we're working remote and so on. I felt it was extremely important to us to go maybe a slightly different way, but all our account managers try to stay in close contact to their accounts, to actually show that presence in a different way, that we are here, that we are taking a very close look at the changing user behaviors, the metrics, and just to give our clients really a good feeling that we are ready, on our toes, and close to their projects, even if they're in the home office. And I didn't felt that urge to communicate too much, like, yeah, we are participating in doing good by staying at home, because that's what was required, and it was just reasonable to do, and outstanding to me to some extent, So I think we had to.
I agree, yeah.
make sure that we are outstanding in the way we communicate with our clients in one-to-one and in our projects, and not like in our PR measures.
Yeah, true. So, I mean, you mentioned kind of campaigns being paused, being cut back. Obviously, I think, or just budgets being shifted into other things where required. So, give us a bit of an idea. So, what I mean, without naming clients, but like, what happened? Is it like just did you have to change directions, or was it just like, okay, they like not sensitive or sensible in regards to communication? What were the main drivers for the shift there?
I think there were all kind of drivers. It starts from like just high level financial decisions that had to be taken immediately, like budget cuts, project stops, rollback of budgets. I think everything we're seeing. That goes in hand with clients that had to go on, and now I need a proper English word. So Kurzarbeit, so like short-term work.
Short-term work, yep.
Yeah, you have some reduced working times for specific teams, and that means that there are now not the resources allocated towards projects or anything like that available in some cases. And then there were just more practical things like we have a client who's proposing a product where we do the lead gen for it and so on, but they had a COVID case within their sales team that actually handles the leads, and they had to send them all home, and they were not ready to have remote infrastructure for various reasons. So there, even if there was a higher demand than in a usual time, unfortunately in this case they weren't able to fulfill it. So you see, there are all kind of different motivations that led to sudden and unforeseen changes. And well, yeah, basically, I don't think one specific pattern that led to it. The one that lasts so long, that has the highest impact, I think, is where companies, and I do see that more with larger and international companies, where like financial decisions were taken, not just immediately for that time, but
then after
that will last throughout the year. And I'm still very unsure how this will kind of recover or get back. And I think it just adds a lot to us as an agency, obviously, that adds a lot of uncertainty.
Yeah, because you don't, I mean, it's hard to plan, right? It's hard to plan for something that you don't really know, and where you can't fully kind of grasp the impact, right?
Hard to plan if you're in a project business. It was always hard to plan, but this is now an additional layer of uncertainty that multiplies the difficulties in really planning on a midterm basis. What happens within the next 3 months? What happened within the next 12 months? Anything like this seems to be harder to predict than ever. Also, well, then we're looking more at macroscopic aspects of where we are today, but and I think those also have a higher influence on the decision making in C-level, financial C-levels of larger companies than the more immediate recovery of this exceptional situation. I don't know if that was clear enough.
No, I guess it was. I mean, it's probably the same, right? I mean, I think for what we saw, obviously, and I think that again goes back to what Julia was saying. For paid, we saw, I mean, depending on what as you said, the variables of the kind of driving the decision were at the end, but like we saw, of course, like the PPC effects kind of coming a bit more immediately, and then at the same time with a certain lead time towards a project. Now obviously project work is less, because those projects would have had to be closed in March or early April, and now obviously that's less project volume. So I think agencies are probably pretty much in the same boat here. So I think this is not really unexpected. But you're right. I mean, I guess we all know about our like volumes that we usually were attracting in terms of project inquiries, right? And I guess that's even harder now, because we just all don't know.
Yeah, but that's I mean, that's just the business perspective, and
yeah,
again, there's also very obviously for anything that is now in digitalization, digital marketing, there is some opportunity and additional needs and needs for consultancy, understanding how that will impact business on a long term and so on. So there's opportunity. But I think also it was a good learning, at least in many of these, either it's things that got stopped or that got paused or that needed to be adjusted or new campaigns that came up, that some of those digital channels are really able to deliver day-to-day results. They are quick in a way that we can make changes happen, adjust on a daily basis if needed. And I think even if it was hard, but you could at least shine on that and showing it is agile.
Flexibility, right?
Stop it. It's stopped now. It's not like your half-year TV commercials that are booked and we have to renegotiate and so on. We cannot just say there's advantages in those channels and then not use them once they are needed.
That's a fair point. Yeah, that's a fair point. True. So let's go back to the kind of people's/human perspective on things. I mean, before we do, maybe just so give us a quick rundown. How is it looking right now with you guys in the office? So is there? I suppose it's not everything is fully back to normal, or is it? Is there like restrictions, limitations? What are you guys doing right now?
Yeah. So I think just the general situation in Switzerland has recovered quite quickly over the last 4 or 5 weeks. So government has released lots of the stronger restriction, and by today also it's the official end of the extraordinary situation. I don't know what you would compare that to, a DEFCON level or something.
Right.
It's no longer on the highest alert level in terms of regulations and the power of the government. It goes back everything a little bit more towards a calmer time. And I think also the general strategy is now on back to this mitigation phase. Tracing is the thing that the authorities are putting a very high emphasis on it. Obviously not forgetting about some social distancing and all the hygiene elements. So I think what we can do for our office is we have to ensure that we have all these basics now in place. I mean, that starts with very simple thing, having enough sanitizer and washing soap, cleaning surfaces, door handles, and so on more often than we would do. Luckily, we have the space to space out our desks. So in Switzerland, the official measurement was 2 meters of distance. So I think it's 1.5 in
I was gonna say it's even a bit more than what we have in Germany right now. Yeah, true.
1 meter in other countries. I don't know. I'm not an expert. I'm just following the authorities.
No, of course.
Recommendation. And here also, if you look at the campaigns that they run here in Switzerland, they moved away from those 2 meters. They just say keep your distance.
Keep your distance.
And also the government in Switzerland is not really strongly putting rules that you absolutely have. It's more like very strong recommendations. So if you go from the practical perspective, they say if you cannot keep your distance, they want you to wear a mask. So it's not. I don't think you would get a fine or anything, but that's the expectation. And I think with those things being the expectation, I mean, we can also just set the expectation for our team, the way we collaborate. And we have reduced seating space in meeting rooms. I don't want to put 10 people into a small meeting room for no need. So even if we have a larger team meeting, we might still do it on a video call, even if everybody's on site, just if there is no need. So why do it? But
I was just going to say, so practically that means
is giving people the option, encouraging, reminding to some extent, and it needs every single one's part and for it, and people have to feel well with what they are doing. So if somebody would not feel well with sharing a table for eating lunch, then just don't do it. If somebody feels not good with sitting in a meeting room with 4 other people, then we don't have to do it. So just not pushing things and keeping an eye out on the general development is the current state we are at. So we had 2 weeks where we worked with half teams. just also to see how that feels, not just
Mm-hmm.
of hygiene matters, how it feels for people, so people get the chance to check out what that means for their journey to the workplace and back, and I think that paid off really well. And since we always had the option for home office to extend that if somebody did not feel well, but as of since last week or now today, that those measures are more or less completely lifted by the government, we are back in the office in full force.
Right, understood. So basically that means just kind of layout changes and some structural changes that you guys did to just kind of follow more or less like the guidance that was out there. But so like that ties in quite nicely to a question that we actually had in the chat. So what is well, we all don't know, I suppose. I mean, some might, some don't. So yeah, how does it look like for like, how do you do any preparations in case there's kind of a second wave that's coming? Is there any kind of learnings that you took from like, what happened in the past? So how are you, if you are, how are you prepping for something that says maybe again going back to another stage, saying, well, home office it is again? Is there anything that you guys are doing, or you just kind of sit and wait right now?
No, absolutely. I mean, that is the mindset you need to have. You still need to be agile and react to what every day brings. And right now we had days where in the canton of Zurich, so in the larger area, there were 0 new cases reported, even in consecutive days. So then there is a time to try to get back to a new normal, or you know what I mean? And maybe there's a time where we have to go a step back and react to that. But what I'm not a big fan of is that some of, again, larger companies mainly have already decided, like, and I think Google is one of them, we are doing home office until the end of the year.
Right.
Which I don't think pays really attention to the moment, to the current development, to local differences. So maybe what looks good in Mountain View might be a different situation here in Zurich or in Tokyo, or whatever. So, and what happens in this case is, at least I have this feeling, that kind of extends this urgency, this kind of not nice situation mentally into till the end of the year, at least.
Yeah.
Even if it's, and that's kind of on you're creating this extraordinary scenario on a longer term than maybe needed. And I think it's, to me at least, it makes more sense to react to what happens every day. And then what you said, well, there might be a second wave, there might not be. There's experts who will say yes, there's other experts who say,
exactly.
I'm not judging it. I have a close look. And if it's required, then it's required. So, but I would also advise anyone who's commenting on or reopening his business or going on his social media profiles and say, yeah, we're back in the office now. Keep in mind that this could be temporary, and don't do any kind of like premature celebration and then you have to get back or you get called out for, you said, I mean, look at what happens in Gütersloh and so on. This is just possible. And I think this might
completely agree. Yeah.
And we have to be ready to react once that happens.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I think, I mean, I'm not sure what your take is, so I'm curious. Like, well, I saw a lot of those, and again, I have a bit of the same opinion on I think what you are saying. Like, is it really wise already to do one or the other for a very long period? And I know there's a lot of companies. I think HubSpot was also a very prominent example. Facebook did it as well, where they said, well, yeah, home office forever. Or there was Twitter that said, well, for another 1.5 years and whatnot. I always feel that this is also a bit more those companies that, and this is not judging, but like that they are kind of building products either way, and not so much kind of agency businesses. So I think what's also missing in this entire discussion is a bit of the context on like the business itself, its clientele, its requirements. I'm not saying it's not possible, but I think like those very prominent examples that everyone is talking about, they're like, yeah, well, okay, those are very large organizations, very product driven, and they're not so much probably having the same challenges as a business of the size of a BlueGlass or a Peak Ace might have.
Might be. It might be also some kind of better safe than sorry. It might also be, liability issues, especially if you think about the US. And maybe we have to mention this. I mean, if you look at a global scale, we still have, I think we just had a day with the most new tested infections ever. So it's not gone in any way, but we have to understand the local context. And as I said, in our area here in Switzerland, we have maybe 20, 25 cases per day reported. So we were earlier, as we mentioned in the beginning, and here it's for now no longer in this urgency and it's gone. So we need to react. That's what I'm trying to say. But
no, it makes sense.
Who listens in from a country where the situation is completely different might shake their head and say, well, this is totally irresponsible what we do. And I can understand, but I think we learned also from Google that context is very important.
Nice tie-in there on the I was going to say on the SEO angle. Yeah, well played. You're right. I mean, probably also a bit context from the German ish perspective. I mean, we were a bit on the I think other side of the spectrum, right? We were like it felt like we were fast to react. So like our curve was like relatively low compared to other countries, which is or was great. However, though, now all of a sudden we had those massive spikes in the last 2 or 3 days. Like numbers and the R index went up like crazy due to some like really mismanaged. And again, I'm not familiar with anything, but like situations that happened there. So as you said, I think local context is like super important as long as we're not talking about global travel, which is probably a whole different discussion. But like for that, I agree. Businesses probably need to decide on like the kind of more the geo than anything else. Yeah.
So, and then in the end, again, it comes down to this. I mean, as an employer, I'm not able to solve the problems of the pandemic. All we should do is we should be able to ensure a secure environment, because highest priority is health of the team. Yeah. And then only after, I mean, I don't want to be in the newspaper like this butchery now in Gütersloh with their brand and so on, because I don't know if they really mismanaged or if they just were unlucky or whatever. Yeah. But there's a reputation risk. That is also in all of those thoughts, and I understand why other companies would say, well, again, better safe than sorry, but I think it's our job to primarily ensure that everybody can act responsible and safe if they want. But if somebody does not want to participate in the recommendation practices, the game is lost anyway. So yeah. But we cannot solve it. We can just
we can't. That's true.
Can work and again react appropriate if times or things, the context changes.
Maybe it's also a bit of the beauty again then of the sizes of the companies that we are having, right? Because I mean, I imagine, as you said, like that, better safe than sorry for large organizations is probably sometimes also really the only way. They like thousands and thousands of people all over the globe. That stuff just literally takes forever, as we all know. So I think, like with 100-ish.
Look, that better safe than sorry, or extending the crisis until the end of the year or something like this, it also adds to something very different and to this uncertainty, companies not willing to do any more investments, stopping their forward thinking and just or focusing on their own. I think that's something that as a community, as a country, as a society, obviously as an economy, but we need to get back going to a reasonable way. And I feel like that does not really help if you have still these kind of measurements in place. Sometimes that might also lame. You know what I was trying to say.
It makes it certainly not easier. Let's put it that way. No, I totally agree. But let's switch to some more pleasant topics. I guess, as you said, it's something that we can't really solve, that we just have to deal with in a way that it comes. And I guess BlueGlass has pretty much the same like take on that as we have as PKs as well. Like well-being first, and everything else comes after. But at least we have the flexibility to adjust as needed, and I think that's probably the wisest way to do it. What the other thing that I want to pick your brain on, and I think this is what Dominique is also particularly excited about. I mean, you mentioned it, funny that you did actually. We had it a couple of times in previous episodes as well, because everyone and the mother is literally calling it the new normal, even though I think no one really knows what that actually means or doesn't mean. I don't think we should go like this high, because then we're probably sitting here for another 3 hours. But like, let's look at it from the channels, I guess, that we can call ourselves experts in. So, I mean, what is your take in terms of SEO or organic search, probably in general? Do you already see any kind of significant shifts? Let's just not so much talk about the business perspective here. I think we covered that a bit, but is it changing content-wise? Not necessarily content-wise, but that other topics changing? Do you see anything that already did? Would you think something crazy exciting is coming up? What's your predictions on that one? Because I think that's also really interesting, because people have to go back, revisit their strategies potentially, reallocate budgets. What do you think?
Yes, Dominique or me?
You first, and then we let Dominique chip in. Sorry, my mistake. I didn't address you properly, Raphael. My mistake.
No, it's okay. It's okay.
Go on.
Look, there's a few changes that are obvious. There's a few changes in the customer online behavior, obviously, and you talked about that on this show before, about search behavior, search term volumes that quickly came up. I think one of the in e-commerce, there's probably the most direct impacts that we have, and it was kind of a Kickstarter to a lot of users that never purchased online, that actually got their experiences in that. So it broadens up audiences in different areas. I feel like
that's a good take. Yeah,
see that there's more rookie search terms for certain online shopping terms, like less advanced search terms that have some relevancy, in example. And I mean, that's the demand side, but on the supply side, especially here in Switzerland, I think you can see that it also has an accelerating effect on larger retailers to actually better integrate their online shopping, bring it closer to their main brand. I think the best example is the Coop, which is kind of, I don't know, like Rewe or something like this. In like the Tesco or whatever. And they always had their e-commerce platform as Coop at home, and different website, different URL, and different branding. It might be coincident that at the same time they reported they put that together and they want to have this as one experience. But there's other brands out there who are about to do the same thing and probably have to do the same thing. So a very well integrated shopping experience across physical and digital channels seems to be what the client expects. And finally, so even some of those Swiss brands who have had multi-brand strategies are starting to merge that together. And the biggest competitor of Coop is obviously Migros. So I'd not be surprised to see the same thing happening there. And just to provide a better, more integrated experience without differentiating too much. It's not about research online, purchase offline. It's just like, it's the same. You get it delivered, you pick it up, you choose it in the store, and then we deliver. Doesn't matter.
Got it. Dominique, any additional takes on that?
I was thinking about that, because I think from our client perspective, I was thinking about cases in terms of that. I think I cannot or we do not have any or didn't experience that with our clients, but saw that on the field of e-commerce as well. Of course, I think so. In Germany, it's especially the same.
But
No, not really something additional to add here. Oh, sorry.
The other thing that you get to see is like brands who mainly sold their products through retail actually start to open up like something like online flagship stores, try to find a direct to the customer sales channel. Did you notice, or did you have any clients that immediately needed to have like a storefront online?
I think what we more had was, if I recall correctly, what we more had was like the other spectrum that you mentioned, like the shift of the business model in itself, because it was very offline-ish, and all of a sudden needed to happen entirely online, which kind of goes back nicely to kind of what you were saying, kind of being flexible in regards to the channel and how you deal with the channel and adjust the ads to a new product and whatnot. So I think this was more what we have been seeing actually, but it probably might also be a bit different because of like a different clientele, if that makes any sense. Or like, I think this is probably the main reason for what I would imagine is happening. The other thing though, what I really liked was your advice, and it probably goes back a bit to this entire discussion around kind of buyers personas, if you so will, like the need on the demand side to potentially go back and even like recheck keyword strategies and keyword targeting, or stuff that might be missing due to the change of behavior, right? This is what you were saying, if I understand correctly.
Yeah, sure. And I mean, you need to be successful during that specific time, and maybe also to ensure that people would buy again from you online. You got to provide a smooth UX and all of that, obviously, but just make it simple for a first-time shopper, online shopper of a specific domain to find their way. Give them a how-to video or a quick guide, or there is a new segment of users online that might have not used your shop or anymore, that does not have all the e-commerce knowledge that they need. So I'll give you an example. My mom would typically online shop by browsing the online shops, finding a product, taking a screenshot of it, and sending me that on WhatsApp. Please order this for me. So there would be an opportunity to help her out doing it on her own. So
makes sense. I think also what's often overlooked is the fact that like that was true even like pre-corona and whatnot. But I think like site search and whatnot, especially on e-com, can like reveal a lot of those kind of opportunities that are overlooked. I mean, I guess site search generally is probably a big topic that people are not paying enough attention to. So that again is nothing really new. But I guess especially as you just said, like when search behavior change and you might not have the right kind of taxonomy on the site, then like internal site search, no results and whatnot could be also a good starting point to kind of dig around and understand, what's going on, or what am I potentially missing, right?
Yeah, and not just analyzing the site search data, but actually trying out what happens if you enter that. I mean, putting yourself into the same state of mind as you would research keywords and understand what needs behind that keyword. If site search data is used, then it's, well, this category is more searched than others and so on. But you got to sit down and search for those queries and put yourself in a mindset of somebody who's actually typing this why and what would they expect to see, and do you meet those expectations? Because you do it for the search engine, but you're not your internal site search. That might make not so much sense.
Yeah, you shouldn't do it on a Monday, though. I think that can be a very frustrating experience sometimes. It's like always kind of surprised what you discover with those. I would imagine. We're already down to 55 minutes. It's crazy how time flies these days.
Maybe if we are thinking about things you do for the first time online, I guess one thing that could also be considered, I mean, besides what happens with larger companies on e-commerce, I think there's also, obviously we had the time to experience some of the offerings that are local and nearby. Whether we talk about hospitality, tourism, if we talk about the little farm store or something. And they all had huge spikes. I mean, you read in every news that a farmer hired 3 more people just to equip his local farm store, or smaller tourist destinations. And I mean, they have to start asking themselves, well, now if that goes away, how can we keep some of this business? How can we serve those people? And I mean, developing a very elaborate online platform and so on might not always be the case. But if I think of a smaller restaurant or tourist destination or anything like this, I'd really make sure now that I gather some data and that I go into something like retargeting options, also marketing automation, newsletter options. Because they give you a chance now to get in contact with them. So I don't know if you Schifffahrtsgesellschaft Bodensee, anything like this, make sure not just to offer information, but also make part of your business right now bookable, or you can take a reservation or leave your email address and then you will get a free coffee on board or something. Once you have these new people, this new audience, that you collect something of them that you can get back to them later, because otherwise in autumn or next summer, they might all be again in where do you go, to Mallorca?
No, very, very true. I guess that's the one thing, and the other thing is just the kind of the being smart about, you know, the channels itself, and just kind of providing you know, the service that's needed in a time where it's somewhat needed most. I think is also super important. Like at least from an agency kind of client perspective, I think this is at least what we are trying as much as we can to just kind of, I mean, because it's crazy times for everyone, for some more, for some less, but I guess overall, like we all, as you said, in this summer together, and I think just allocating the resources wisely is probably a really important thing there as well, and the beauty of our channel as well, right? Or the channels. I mean, as you said, it's kind of a shame if we just said, well, you know, it's fast, and then we're not fast. So I agree. Yeah.
But also on these digital channels, I mean, so many restaurants and local businesses took it in their hand, had really creative ways of coming up with service and so on. And I'd love them to extend that a little bit more now and use this creativity also to probably produce some content. It can be a couple of stories. It can be a smartphone video. It can be their own new pictures that they take, and just use a resource like Google My Business properly right now. Upload all your own content, your opening hours. Use that also if we talked about that second wave and so on, or option for it. Use those COVID information you can file in. Just, you don't have to do a very elaborate web project when you try to extend a little bit what you're doing now well, because otherwise it will just go away. And I think we might quickly forget about some of those services we used right now, and it would be a pity for a lot of the energy that has been put into.
Very true.
That definitely ties in what I've seen on social media massively at the moment, that people seems like to be a bit like frustrated and try to sell as much as they can with an easy and quick way during Instagram and Facebook. And instead of giving company insights and giving inspirational content, that's what Instagram is for, right? So only having like postings about their product and any kind of, okay, please buy something here, and not only the paid part, also the organic postings. That's what I'm thinking about. Is that the perfect strategy at the moment for using your social media channels and getting away from your storytelling and getting away to push any kind of information and touch people on an emotional level, let's say? Nobody wants to see only product posts on Instagram, to be honest, right? So that's what I would add over there.
That makes sense. And I guess it's also like the frustration, as you said, like some people are just probably have to try harder than others, or like are just a bit more desperate. I mean, it's again, like there are businesses that are severely impacted. So I can totally see where it sometimes comes from, but it's not necessarily the right way to do it all the time. So as you guys said, like
short, right? So to think.
And I guess that what Dominic just said is also creating some new opportunity. I mean, I quickly talked about local stuff that had huge spike, but I think there is place and opportunity to start thinking of more long-term content that brings back some of those wishes and needs about, I don't know, going to the beach and help people to start dream about it, have some creative ideas on without selling it right now. We have to carefully rebuild it. And I mean, there's lots of challenge. If I book now some vacation, I might feel bad. I besides all the flight shaming, there's might be some COVID shaming or something, but help me get a good feeling to start dreaming about this again. Help me, giving me inspiration that times where I can travel and lie on the beach. Well, you can go to the North Sea or so. I can't.
Yeah, well, you can go to the Alps then. So I guess that's fine. No, I know what you mean. You're completely right.
Content should be rising or start rising.
And you can, and if you use them wisely,
that we need it now. We need this kind of content.
Yeah. And I guess if you use it wisely, then you can like not necessarily use it to sell, but just to inform, and then still use it for any type of lead gen, kind of in a later stage. So as you said, like I guess the smart content is one thing that's probably like, which is a good.
But if you just say me that like, oh, my hotel in Hurghada has now COVID discount rates because nobody bought in its super cheap, that won't work, because that will trigger the exact opposite of what I'd like to do.
Yeah, that's that's very true. Nice. All right. I'm afraid we're already out of time. So we made it already past the 5 o'clock mark in Germany. So I just want to thank you very, very much, Raphael, for joining us. Great fun chatting with you. Much appreciate the transparency and thoughts that you shared. I think super helpful content there for everyone who's kind of somewhat running a business or is trying to kind of go back to a bit of normality, if that makes any sense. So I think again, thank you very much for taking the time. We really appreciate it.
Thanks.
And with that, again, quick shout out, if you're watching it afterwards, feel free to leave us your feedback. Dominic and I are available on Twitter or by email. Just drop us a line, hi@pa.ag. Also, if you want any of the slides from kind of the former episodes, I'm happy to share them. There was a bunch of data in there, as we mentioned earlier. Julia was sharing a lot of the kind of PPC related data points last week. Again, if you want the slides, let us know. With that, we are off for the week. There is no national holiday next Monday, so that means that means we will be back at the same time, at the same day. So Monday, 4 p.m. German time. And we look forward to seeing you all next week. Bye-bye.
Goodbye. Stay safe and have a great week.